New Year's Eve always smelled like hope, cheap champagne, burnt fireworks, and promises people only keep for one night. We were standing in the kitchen, waiting for midnight. The TV was too loud. Some host counting down with fake excitement. Confetti already falling on a screen that wasn't real life. She was wearing the red dress I loved. The one she said she saved just for special days. I poured the drinks. She didn't touch hers. I thought she was nervous about the year ahead. About work. About money. About us. I had no idea what was coming. The clock hit 11:58. 2 minutes left. She finally looked at me. Not with love. Not with guilt either. With something heavier. Like relief mixed with fear. She said my name. Not loudly. Not emotionally. The way people do. When they already decided something. And just need to say it out loud once. I can't start another year lying to you. Fireworks exploded outside. Someone screamed from the champagne popped in the apartment above us. The world was celebrating, and my chest went cold. I laughed, not because it was funny, because my brain refused to understand. Lying about what? I asked. She didn't answer right away. She stared at the clock. 11:59. Her hands were shaking. I noticed it only later. Back then I only saw her mouth open and close again, like she was trying to swallow something that didn't fit inside her. I've been seeing someone else. The words landed soft, not dramatic, not loud, like someone carefully placing a bomb on a table and walking away. Outside, people were already screaming. 10, 9, 8. My head was empty. I was still holding the bottle, still smiling like a fool. For how long? I asked. She looked at the floor. That was the answer. Since last winter. Since last winter. Not weeks. Not a mistake. Not a drunk night. A whole year. 12 months of lies. Of fake smiles. Of me kissing her goodbye every morning. Thinking I was the only one. Why today? I whispered. She finally looked at me again. Because I don't want to carry this into another year. Fireworks outside hit their peak. People counting. 5, 4, 3. I was standing in our kitchen with a woman I didn't recognize anymore, realizing that the year behind me had never really been mine. 2, 1. Happy New Year. She started crying. I didn't. Not yet. I thought she was going to tell me she was pregnant, or that she wanted to move, or that she was scared about the new year. That's why she waited until midnight passed, until the fireworks faded, until the neighbors stopped screaming and the world became quiet again. We were sitting on the floor, leftover champagne between us. Confetti stuck to her hair. She didn't cry right away. She said my name first. The way you say it when you already know the person you're talking to is about to disappear. Then she said it. Not fast. Not slow. Like she was reading a grocery list. She had been seeing someone else. Not once. Not a mistake. 4 months. She told me when it started. A random Tuesday. A night she said she was tired. A night I kissed her forehead and told her to rest. I asked who he was. She didn't say his name at first. She said what he made her feel. Seen. Wanted. Alive again. That hurt more than the cheating, because I had been there every day, cooking, asking about her work, listening to her complain about the same people. I had loved her loudly, and still, it wasn't enough. She said she never meant for it to last, that it just happened, again and again. Then she finally said his name. I knew it. Not a stranger. Not some ghost from the internet. A guy I had met. A guy who had been in our apartment. A guy who laughed at my jokes. The room went silent. Not awkward silent. Dead silent. And I realized something horrible. This wasn't a confession. It was a goodbye she was too afraid to say directly. I kept replaying the year in my head. Every argument. Every quiet evening. Every time she said she was just tired. Now each memory had a shadow. She told me it wasn't about me. That line people use when it is exactly about you. I asked how long it had really been. She didn't answer at first. She counted in her head. That pause felt longer than the relationship itself. 8 months. 8 months of good mornings. Of inside jokes. Of plans for the future. 8 months of me thinking we were building something, while she was already leaving. I asked if she loved him. She shook her head too quickly. No, she said, like she needed that to be true. But love isn't just a word. It's patterns. It's habits. It's whose messages you hide. Whose calls you take in the bathroom. Whose name your mouth almost says in the dark. I realized I couldn't remember the last time she looked at me without also checking her phone. The last time she kissed me without being in a hurry. The last time she stayed after I said, "Just 5 more minutes." I asked her why now? Why tonight? Why ruin the year at the exact moment it was beginning? She said she didn't want to carry the lie into an... I told myself I didn't want details. That knowing more would only make it worse. Then I asked everything. Where they met. How often. If he knew about me. She answered carefully, like she was stepping around broken glass that was already inside my chest. They met through work. Coffee at first. Nothing serious. That's how all serious things start. Once a week became twice. Twice became whenever she could invent a reason. She said he knew about me. Not the real me. The version that fit into a story, where she wasn't the villain. I asked if she had ever been in love with him. She said no again. Slower this time. I noticed the way she looked at the wall, instead of at me. That was when I realized. People don't lie with words. They lie with their eyes. I asked her if she planned to leave. She didn't answer. Not because she didn't know. Because she did. I thought about the trips we took. The photos we posted. The small fights we laughed about later. She said all of that was real. That she never pretended with me. But real things don't run in parallel lives. She told me she felt lost before she met him. That something inside her had been quiet for too long. I wanted to ask why I wasn't enough to wake it up. I didn't. Instead, I asked if she was happy now. She hesitated. That was my answer. Because if she were truly happy, she wouldn't be sitting on our kitchen floor at 1 a.m, running 2 lives at once. She said she was sorry. So many times it started to sound like a habit. Sorry doesn't rebuild months. It just makes them heavier. I stood up. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Like someone leaving a room they no longer belonged in. I didn't slam the door, didn't raise my voice. I walked into the bedroom. We had painted together. The color she chose. The curtains I hated, but never asked to change. My suitcase was under the bed, still half empty from our last trip. I put things inside without looking. Shirts, a charger, the hoodie she used to steal. She followed me, not to stop me, to watch. She leaned against the doorframe, like this was just another argument that would end with silence and sleep. I wanted her to beg, to panic, to tell me I was the only one. She didn't. She said she didn't know what I was going to do. I said I didn't either. That was the most honest thing either of us had said all night. I stepped outside without a coat. Didn't feel the cold at first. Fireworks were still echoing somewhere, but the street in front of our building was empty, like the city had already moved on without me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, her name on the screen. I didn't open it. I walked past the corner store, where we used to buy cheap wine, past the bus stop, where she once kissed me in the rain. Every place felt like evidence from a trial I had never agreed to attend. I sat on a bench and stared at the pavement, counting cracks like they were days. 12 months. 365 lies. I realized I didn't know where I was going to sleep that night. But I knew one thing clearly. I couldn't start a new year in a life that had already ended. I opened her message for the first time since I walked out. It was simple. Too simple for something that had destroyed a year. Please come back. We should talk. Talk. Like conversation was the missing piece. Like words could stitch together what had been quietly torn apart for months. I typed her name, then deleted it. I typed, "Did you ever love me?" Then erased that too. Every question felt smaller than the damage. I put the phone face down on the bench, the same way she always did. And for the first time, I understood why. I didn't go back to the apartment. Not that night. I ended up at a small diner near the highway. One of those places that never close, because someone is always losing something. The waitress asked if I was okay. I said yes. Too quickly. She poured coffee I didn't ask for, and didn't take my card right away, like she already knew. This wasn't about food. I stared at the steam rising from the cup, thinking about how many times I had waited for her in cafes, telling myself she was just running late. Now I was the one sitting alone, while she was probably explaining me to someone who didn't deserve the story. I paid in cash. Didn't wait for the receipt. When I stood up, I felt lighter. Not better. Just emptier. And sometimes empty is easier to carry than broken. The sky was already changing color when I finally stood outside again. Blue mixing with gray. A year pretending to begin. I checked my phone. No new messages. Not relief. Confirmation. I imagined her waking up in our bed, finding my side cold, telling herself this was necessary. I wondered if she missed me yet. Not the idea of me. The actual me. The one who knew how she liked her coffee. The one who stayed up with her when she cried over nothing. I realized something quietly, standing in the empty parking lot. She didn't confess to save me. She confessed to free herself. And freedom has a price. that is never paid by the person who asks for it. I didn't know where I would go next, but I knew I couldn't go back. Not to the kitchen, not to the bedroom, not to the version of myself that believed loyalty was automatic. I opened my calendar out of habit. Every date already felt wrong. Birthdays, trips we planned, a future that had been written by someone who didn't exist anymore. I deleted the reminders one by one, like erasing proof that the year ahead had ever belonged to us. It felt brutal. It also felt honest. And honesty was something I had been missing for a very long time. I rented a room near the station. Nothing special. A bed, a desk, a window that didn't quite close. The silence felt different there. Not heavy. Empty in a way that didn't ask questions. I lay on the mattress fully dressed, listening to cars pass somewhere below, wondering how many people were starting the year with secrets instead of plans. My phone stayed dark. No apologies. No explanations. Just the quiet proof that some stories end without a final message. I fell asleep thinking about nothing, and that was the closest thing to peace I had felt in months. In the morning, I packed the rest of my things. Not from the apartment. From my head. I stopped checking my phone every minute. Stopped replaying her voice. Stopped wondering what he had that I didn't. I kept the hoodie she used to steal. Not because it was hers. Because it was mine first. I realized I didn't miss her. I missed the person I was. Before I learned how easy it is to be replaced. Somewhere between the station and nowhere. I decided this year wouldn't be about forgetting. It would be about becoming someone no one could quietly walk away from again. By the time the sun finally came out, I was already on a train heading nowhere specific. People around me were laughing, showing each other photos from last night, talking about resolutions they would forget by February. I watched their reflections in the window and wondered how many of them were carrying something heavy. I thought the hardest part would be missing her. It wasn't. It was learning how much of myself I had given to someone who was already building a life without me. I stopped looking for signs. Stopped checking old photos. Stopped asking friends how she was doing. Not because it didn't hurt. Because I finally understood something simple. Love that has to be protected from the truth isn't love. It's fear wearing a memory. If you're listening to this right now, and something in your life feels heavy, don't ignore it. Some endings don't scream. They wait for a holiday, for a celebration, for a moment you thought was safe. And if this story stayed with you longer than you expected, you can subscribe.